Okay, welcome to Super Aging. This is an episode all about the power of pleasure. Hi, I'm Marianne from One Life to Flourish. I'm a wellness and mindset coach and an intuitive energetic healer. And my focus and passion in my business is on supporting women to find the magic in midlife and to also create massive change in their future by breaking through their emotional blocks. So tonight, as I said, I am talking about pleasure and joy and why that's a good thing. So this is not what I was originally intending to talk about, but I've sort of had a whole series of things happen that have been kind of like a little knock saying, you need to talk a little bit about pleasure, because this has been something I've had to be reminded of in the last week, probably a couple of weeks now I think about it. So that's why we're doing this topic. And of course, when we're talking about pleasure, we're talking about all kinds of pleasure. So quite often as we get a bit older, we kind of get the feeling that it's not okay any longer to just do things for the pure pleasure and joy of doing it. Sometimes we're made to feel a little bit guilty if we do that, whether that's brought on by ourselves or by people around us. But often it's seen as not setting a good example, not being responsible. We should be helping and supporting people, not worrying about ourselves so much. Well, that's rubbish. Okay, so basically at every point in our life, we should be making sure that we are feeling great, that we are able to enjoy the pleasures that are around us, whatever they may be, simple or complicated, whatever. All right, so we actually really need that time to just enjoy things, because other than making us feel pretty good when we're just enjoying stuff, it can also help to improve our health as well. So that's what we're talking about. How can we kind of age well? So, when I'm talking about pleasure, I really am meaning anything that gives you a feeling of pleasure. So it can be something very simple, like, just going for a walk on the beach, sitting under a tree, listening to birds, maybe getting that really delicious, expensive bit of chocolate, just one piece, and then just savoring it. Okay, so anything at all that just gives you that feeling of pleasure. And looks like I'm getting my kitten, who can sometimes give me pleasure, not so much, coming to interrupt me. There he goes. Whoops, we might have an accident happening here. All right, so let's talk about what happens with pleasure. So when we feel genuine pleasure, it has an impact on lots of different parts of our body. So one area of this is hormones, and I have talked about this a little bit, particularly with oxytocin, which is like our kind of happiness hormone, but it also has an impact on things like serotonin, dopamine, and the endorphins as well. And they all have great impacts on our overall health when they're boosted and effective, essentially. Now, there's also another thing that I haven't talked about before, which is called nitric oxide. Now, this is a natural molecule, compound, whatever, that is produced in the body, and it has a really positive effect, say, on heart health and they think even type 2 diabetes, because of the way it dilates the blood vessels, along with some other things that it does as well. Now, interestingly, the effect that it has is the same as the effect that Viagra has on the body. So take from that what you will. But basically, its production is triggered by things like laughter, particularly laugh out loud laughter, orgasms, and any other experiences that really give us pleasure. Yes, Jasmine, is that how we say it? Jasmine? Yes, he loves to sit up there because that's where the heat's coming from the air conditioner. Yes, he looks cute. He can be a demon in disguise. But anyway, so he does give me pleasure, speaking about pleasure. Okay, so yes, nitric oxide is triggered by those things that give us pleasure, but it also can also be, interestingly enough, triggered by eating things like fruit and vegetables, meditating, and exercising. So things that can sometimes just give us, a feeling of exhilaration almost, in terms of exercising, or even calm us down like meditating. And the impact of vegetables and fruit is very good on the body, as we know. So it's quite interesting. Now, the other interesting side to this is that when we feel emotions such as anger, fear, grief, those kinds of things, it actually depletes the nitric oxide, and sort of almost has an effect like it's sort of sucking the life out of us rather than giving the life to us. So when we trigger the nitric oxide in our body, it gets triggered very quickly. It only lasts a few seconds, but those few seconds have a massive impact. So they kind of have it sort of has a knock-on effect where it helps to release other feel-good chemicals in the body. And the effect of that is that our overall health is improved. So essentially, whatever we focus on, whether it is pleasure or things like anger and those kinds of emotions, whatever we're focusing on, we sort of get a little bit of a cycle built up where we get more of the same. And hopefully we can focus more on pleasure. So we can find pleasurable activities to do, which can lead for a desire for more pleasure, and more pleasure will give us more nitric oxide, and so on. Yes, that's one of the ways it comes from. It's also possible that it's coming from an imbalance in how the hormones are working as well. But mostly the drain feeling comes from some sort of impact around the emotional health, and then that has a knock-on impact on your hormones or your other chemicals in your body. So the way that you feel really does guide how your energy levels are and that kind of thing, just generally. So let me put a proviso on there. There can be other things playing a part, but it can be a really big impact. So obviously, if we're getting ourselves into that nice loop where we're finding pleasurable things to do, boosting the impact of finding pleasure, then what happens is that also helps to stop the process of aging. So we age more rapidly when we give into the feelings of anger, fear, all of those kinds of things. So it's sort of that idea of being young at heart, which is around finding joy, is actually true. If you think about older people that really have that positive, joyful kind of reaction, they've managed to slow down some of their aging just by following the pleasure and the joy in life. So don't feel guilty if that's what you're doing, because that has a massive impact just on what's happening in your body. All right, so having spoken about the emotions, this is obviously being a mindset coach. This is one of the things that I look at. So if you feel that there's something happening with your emotions, and maybe you're carrying around a little bit too much baggage and you can't seem to get rid of it, it's blocking your ability to find the joy in life, then reach out to me. We've got lots of different ways that we could help you with that. So, and as many of you know, my big focus is on helping people at midlife. So if you are at midlife and you're finding it a little bit of a struggle, then you might find the midlife healing journey a nice thing to join. So if you're interested in finding out more about any of those things, just put a yes in the comments and I'll follow up. Or you can, of course, DM me. I'm pretty sure in the comments I have put a link to my Facebook page. So what I want you to do this week is to have a great week. Find some pleasures to indulge in without guilt. We do not want to bring the guilt in there. That takes away the pleasure. So it can be as simple as I said, a delicious piece of chocolate that you can just enjoy. Or maybe, a nice glass of wine. Or just sitting down and reading a good book, whatever. If the weather's fine where you are, maybe go outside if you can. All right, so each day see if you can find some way to enjoy pleasure. Yes, mum guilt is definitely real, but you kind of need to get past that because you deserve to actually have some pleasure in your life as well. So, don't give in to that. Enjoy what you can of your life. If it was just taking 5 minutes of something to give you pleasure. All right, so next week, hopefully, unless I kind of get a nudge in a different direction, I'm going to look at why our environment is quite important in either helping us to age well or not so well. So if you want to find some tips around that, join me next week. Have a great week of indulgence, and I'll talk to you soon. So bye for now.